Welcome back, Berlin, Germany. But the LEC Spring Split is taking place. Next up, we have Vitality on the rise, looking to take their 5th straight win against a rogue squad that pulled off a solid fight yesterday against Fnatic. Welcome to the desk, Medic.
Thank you, Trevor.
We are having a little bit of a giggle here as we're off air. Let's talk about this matchup. This is top of the table versus bottom of the table. Vitality are a team that are in form. They should close this out with a 2-0, currently on that win streak.
And for me, Vitality are, again, kind of LCK compositions meets LPL playstyle, and hopefully it means there's an LEC champion for them in the future. That's what Yamato said. He wants to lift it in spring or summer. He thinks that this is Vitality's year. And everyone, they kind of flew under the radar. Everyone's looking at Misfits G2 and Vitality just snatched it away.
And Frosco, I'm not going to let that comment fly under the radar. You gently brushed that aside to Yamato, who claimed, with the addition of Mowgli, this is what will bring Vitality a title. Will it bring them a title, in your opinion, yes or no?
I mean, you're definitely seeing the evolution of Vitality. You can very clearly, when you go and watch the tape, see they're cleaning up their Baron vision. They're trying to be more patient with the rotations. I think the main takeaway and things for viewers to look at is that Vitality play for lane phase, and they make sure that majority of the champions that they're drafting are really powerful after their first back and buy. And what that does is it unlocks Mowgli to be that aggressive jungler, and the reason why Vitality put him on the squad. So look for that. Look for champions that after the first back, they're ready to go, and immediately what Mowgli does with that power.
I think Mowgli is the guy that you have to look at on this team as well. We were a little bit worried when he came in because of the tumultuous past that Vitality had with junglers. You know, we had Kikis coming in, playing really well for them, then they sub him out. Why are you bringing a new player in? But yesterday against Origin, he really showed me why he deserves to be on this team. That 3-man kick onto the Morgana, making the picks around Baron. Mowgli stepped up for Vitality yesterday, and I only see him growing from here.
Yeah, and of course we had Attila as well with a phenomenal performance, both on the Rift and on PGL. Definitely go check that one out if you haven't. It was very entertaining. The whole squad just looked good. They looked on form. You can actually see some of the plays. They're just behind as Attila and Jactroll set up a beautiful combination, some of the hype plays over the course of the split. Now, this is a very Vitality-focused pregame because they are coming up against the 0 and 5 correction rogue.
You're about
Don't get ahead of yourself.
Future, Trevor. 25 minutes.
Okay, 25 minutes in the future, but it is difficult. Now, I want to give some credit. Rogue did put up a fight against a struggling Fnatic yesterday. Medic, this is a much more difficult challenge today.
It definitely is, but I think you have to look at some of the key players on the team. Kikis going up against his former team. Maybe he'll have a good read on Jiizuké in the mid lane, who has been a little bit impressionable in week 1. Like, he can gank him. My concern is, like, where else do you go on the map, right?
I mean, you always look from the lens that if this is a rogue victory, how did it actually happen? And when I look at Vitality, I'm like, I know how that happens. This team's a firecracker. They just forgot to drop the firecracker. Like, Vitality are a team that when you smile at them, they smile back. Sometimes if you want to play frisky, if you want to play dirty League of Legends, Vitality will roll in the mud with you. They're like, let's go. This guy wants to flash in 1v2. I can take that. And so if Rogue win, I think that's what happens. Vitality get a little bit too confident. They get a little bit too frisky, and they start to tango with Rogue.
Well, listen, we've seen a lot of the players on the Rogue squad playing that style. Sencux is playing a few more of the carries. Kikis likes to roll in the dirt, and we've seen exactly what the rest of the players can do. Now, we are ready for picks and bans. Vitality are looking to continue that unstoppable streak. They have their eyes set on a 2-0 this week. Let's head over to the casters to take us into game.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. A lot of dirty minds, dirty metaphors there on the desk. Very set on rolling around in the mud. How do you feel about a little Vitality versus Rogue rolling around in the mud?
I feel like it's going to be a pretty one-sided game. Expectations are extremely low for me with regards to Rogue. I think that them fighting closely against Fnatic yesterday was more of an indication of Fnatic's skill level rather than Rogue's. And I think the Vitality sitting at the top of the table, if they want to kind of imitate the strength that Schalke have demonstrated, then they need to kind of have that one-sided dominant performance. Now, where that will happen, I don't know. The matchup I'm quite excited for is Cabochard versus Prophet. I do quite like seeing Prophet on carries, and I do think that he has had an impact in many games in the past. And I also think that Cabochard has just been on a tear over the last 2 weeks of the LEC. So he's a player that I've been keeping my eyes on and see what he will do and how the team plays around him coming into this game.
And I think overall, pretty easy to make an argument that Cabochard might be the strongest performing member of this team across all their games. The Draven already taken away, not going to let that one go into the hands of Attila. Aatrox to follow. Now, of course, don't get the luxury of last pick here when you select the blue side for Rogue, but they do have a nice freedom to ban whatever they want. So all those pocket picks can just get taken away Could leave open a lot of OPs here, though.
Now, I imagine that Vitality will still show respect towards Rogue and will ban away some of the top-tier champions, like Lucian could be taken off the board, Cassio will likely be taken off the board. With Urgot already gone, they might look to take away the Akali. Still very obnoxious, very challenging champions that you do not want to give an enemy team, even if they are 0-6. Because at the end of the day, you never want to be that team that loses to the 0-6 team. So we shall see. I would imagine that one of the top tier S tiers, and there we are. We're going to stick with the S tier bans from the side of Vitality and the Cassio.
And there's always two schools of thought, Vedius, when it comes to being the team that's at the bottom of the standings. There's always the people who think that, hey, there's so much pressure on them now to find a win. And there's the other side of the coin, which says their opponents are actually the people who have the pressure on them. The opponents are the ones who cannot afford to drop a game to an 0-5 team.
But Vitality's already a team that knows what pressure is. They take pressure and then they throw it right back at you. And they're a very dominant early game team. The LeBlanc respect ban going over to Jiizuké, I think, is smart. We've seen a lot lower priority of things like the Galio and the Lissandra, and this has given rise to things like, well, the Ryze, the LeBlanc, the Yasuo. We've seen all kinds of fun stuff in the mid lane.
And the Akali now coming in for Rogue. Have to wonder if this is going to go right into the hands of Sencux and how exactly Vitality are going to respond to this. Would not surprise me to see the Jayce immediately locked in. Cabo has been incredible on this champion in his laning phase and will look to keep up those performances today. And now rounding it out with a safe but powerful AD carry in the form of Ezreal. And I gotta hope that Akali is worth it for Rogue.
You know, speaking to Frosk, actually before coming into the split, she told me that over in the LPL, they like to pick Jayce into the Akali, largely because you can pressure her a lot during the laning phase, but also with some of the changes that happen to her Shroud, when you see her, you can actually knock her out of the Shroud and go for a pretty significant trade. So by also itemizing an early Hex Drinker, the amount of kill pressure that Akali has is heavily mitigated as well. So even though Cabochard has typically played the Jayce, I wouldn't be surprised if Vitality just tried to get it into the Akali matchup.
In the nature of flex picks, we will see where it goes in the end and how exactly Vitality want to take the next step in the draft. Will they just match the support pick here? And you talked about kill pressure. We might have some on the bottom side for Rogue with the Lucian Braum if they want to get aggressive, but the Ryze is going to be the priority. And selfishly, Vedius, I want to see the Ryze go in the hands of Jiizuké. I like the idea of both of the players being able to play it in their respective solo lanes, but that is something I'm always excited to see. Signature champion there is the Jarvan is now taken off the board.
You would imagine that would be the Jarvan jungle. Don't want to take that out of Kikis' hands. Former teammates going up against each other. You would imagine they'd be familiar with what Kikis' pool looks like. But yes, you are right. The Ryze, this is what the Italian stallion made a name for himself with. The 2v1 outplays that he had versus Fnatic, the solo kills that he got throughout the split. Definitely a big comfort pick for him, to the point at which he was consistently banned, not only domestically, but also internationally. So definitely a worthwhile pick that you would want to put in the hands of Jiizuké.
Absolutely, and no doubt in my mind that he is one of the strongest, if not the strongest, Ryze player in Europe at the moment. We'll see if he can live up to that standard, live up to that expectation.
I haven't seen him play it yet, my friend.
He historically has been the best.
Very true.
You're right. He could have fallen off completely, Vedius. We could see. He could crash and burn, and we will find out. But the Nocturne, the Lee Sin, and the Thresh going to be the final bans here in this phase. So a lot of the jungle pool limited. And interestingly enough, the Thresh taken away from Jactroll. So a lot of respect here.
Xin Zhao, Gragas, both still up and available. Camille is another one that is primed and ready to go. Right now, Vitality don't have a lot of engage tools, so I wouldn't mind seeing something like a Gragas, so they actually have some ways to start off fights. They could also just go for their support and wait to see what Rogue lock in. Things like the Alistar is another good one, and you know, we already talked about them lacking some engage. They're able to get it with this champion.
Is an excellent champion to have too. Let you dictate the pace a little bit more and sets up nicely depending on what Mowgli wants to go for in the jungle here. Curious to see how Rogue round out the rest of this draft. It will kind of confirm for us where the Akali is going to go and how they want to play this out. They did not give HeaQ and Wadid the luxury of seeing any further into the draft, so you have to hope that the solo laners get a little bit more information. Oof. And picking the Sion just feels like you've accepted that that lane is not going to go in your favor.
Yep. I mean, they want engage as well. Braum, not exactly the greatest way of starting fights, so by adding the Sion, I think it does make sense. The question is, what will they round things out with? They could go for the Gragas themselves. I think taking it away from Vitality makes sense, because remember, Gragas ult is also good against the Akali Shroud too. The only obnoxious thing for Vitality to deal with would be the Braum shield, but they won't have the opportunity to because it will go in the hands of Kikis. So they've got good, strong laners with, or typically strong laners with Lucian and Akali. They have an effective early game jungler with the Gragas, but against this Vitality comp, I don't know if they're going to find that same level of early game success.
And a lot of that is going to be crucial winning in the early game. We talked about it yesterday in the Fnatic matchup about how important it is to just win the lanes and find an advantage for this rogue team, for this rogue lineup. But Sencux on the Akali feels naturally where our eyes have to go to a certain degree. And it's always scary because if we take the nameplates off Vedius, we can talk about both compositions, but when Rogue have been getting beaten out so much in those individual lanes, you have to wonder if they can even set foot on the Rift on even footing.
Well, right now, Rogue only really have a strong bot side of the map. Against Ezreal, he doesn't have that much of a push during the laning phase, so he just has to concede the fact that he won't generate much pressure, especially with an Alistar on his side. They do have some all-in potential with the Olaf, but I don't think they're going to play around bot. I think they're going to play around mid and top. Jiizuké plus Mowgli have an extremely strong 2v2 duo with the Ryze and the Olaf, and then you pair that up with a winning top side of the map with the Jayce going up against Sion. Vitality should be able to have a convincing mid and top lane where they can generate a lot of pressure, get some invades, look for picks, skirmishes, and everything that they could want.
So Vitality's set up to do Vitality things.
Pretty much. I think that they've drafted a pretty solid 1-3-1 composition. Once it's got ahead, it's very easy for them to move off to a side lane and kind of continue snowballing from there. Whereas for Rogue, with the Akali that they've got, I think that they could also look to play on a side lane. I think Akali is one of the strongest late game side lane threats. And if it gets that far into the game, then maybe, I mean, even if they get ahead in the early game, Sencux can be one of those big snowball carries, but I think Rogue really need to leverage their strong 2v2 in the bot side of the map. Braum and Lucian, very strong duo. We need to see them try and secure that early tower towards the bot side of the map, see if they can snowball through that.
We'll find out. Can Rogue do it? Will they find their first win up against a surging Vitality? That is the question on our minds. Definitely the odds are stacked against Rogue, but that won't matter much if they can find a win here. Get into our fourth game of the day, Vitality versus Rogue. Vedius, you brought it up. The early game so crucial for Rogue to find advantage. And you talk about HeaQ and Wadid together, and this is a bot lane that has been receiving a lot of criticism recently. HeaQ has been struggling. Is this the game he finally steps up?
Well, I hope so, because it's really important for Rogue to have a strong 2v2, because if they can't perform, then the worst case scenario for them is they actually go even in the bot side of the map. And recently I've come to the revelation that Ezreal is actually one of the strongest late game carries in the game right now. With the introduction of more of the AP build and the changes to his W, he now does way more damage in the late game than he used to. And that's why, like, we saw a bit of a weird build from Crownshot last game with like the Gunblade third and then the double tier coming later. But typically you go for the double tier, so you have both the Archangel Staff and the Manamune, and then once you hit that point, you just get really, really strong and you scale super well. So I think that the longer this game goes on, the harder it actually gets for Rogue.
And that's just the late game. That's also including the, of course, brutal 2-item spike that Ezreal gets with his choice of Sheen item on top of the initial Muramana. So it is going to be a difficult game, but there are windows for HeaQ. That first item, maybe that Blade of the Rune King can be clutch.
I mean, just the laning phase as well. He is stronger than Ezreal. Ezreal is very item reliant and he's very scaling based. And so in the early game, he won't be able to do a lot. But we got to forget about the bot lane because we're right now seeing a bit of an invade from the side of Vitality. Mowgli actually just trying to pressure out on this blue buff. We do have a quick pause coming out from Jactroll. So for Vitality,
they will rock, paper, scissors for the blue buff. Vitality pause. I'm kidding. We will find out and keep you updated as to what exactly is going to happen here. But I think like so many Vitality games, all eyes are generally on the early game. They can be a very explosive team. Only 1 or 2 games this season where they've shown us a bit of a slower style of play. And so waiting to see, I think, especially what Mowgli is going to do on the Olaf. This is a champion I have such mixed feelings about, Vedius, because when it looks good, it looks so good. And when it looks bad, it just looks useless. And it feels like a champion of extremes.
I really like Olaf. I think he's really strong early game. I think his mid game is good. We've also been seeing a lot more unique itemization, things like the Redemption first item. It gives health, it gives cooldown reduction. It also like compensates for some of his mana issues when clearing through the jungle. So it's also pretty cheap. So it's surprisingly effective. It started over in the LCK and now has made its way over to Europe. And you just kind of go full tanky because you're not really about scaling. So I think that Olaf is good. He can be very good in the early game, and I also think Mowgli's the kind of jungle that can leverage it. What I'm more interested in is Jiizuké versus Sencux, because the last time they played last year, well, it didn't go so well for Sencux, and Jiizuké actually solo killed him. I think it was only once, but he definitely solo killed him.
As an update, we are just adjusting team comp volume levels for Vitality, make sure
they can hear each other.
Maybe Attila was a little too loud, a little too excited. You know, like, all right, we need to turn that guy down just a little bit, but we will see. And it looks like Kikis, not quite 100% sure if he wants to contest this, and the longer this goes, I feel like probably just favors the Olaf if both junglers are going to stay in that early game position. Mowgli is not having.
So do you remember when we said Olaf is really strong early levels? Mowgli is taking full advantage of that right now. And the problem is Akali's actually been pushed underneath her tower already. Fun fact, Sencux was forced under his tower before Jiizuké even last hit a minion. That is how aggressively he is playing that matchup, and he's leveraging the fact that, hey, my jungle is invading. I have nothing to be afraid of, and my top lane is pushing as well.
And that's really what frees Mowgli up to play so aggressive and still staying in this jungle, ready to contest this blue buff at a moment's notice. He's going to set his sights on the Scuttle Crab instead, and Kikis is trying to get one wolf. He has spent the last 50 seconds trying to get a single wolf, Vedius.
This is what happens without a leash, man.
And he uses the smite as well. Brutal start, and now Olaf getting the level 2 can just walk right back into that jungle.
Okay, so he knows that Kikis isn't coming. He knows that he has pressure both mid and top, and Kikis is forced to just concede this objective. So really good stuff from Mowgli at the early levels. This is how you utilize pressure. Really impressive stuff. Now, because the rogue bot lane do have pushed themselves, they've actually been able to get a bit of vision down towards Vitality's blue buff, which means that Gragas, at the very least, will be able to get an objective elsewhere on the map. So now the map is actually being split, meaning that Mowgli will maintain control over the top side, forcing Prophet to be in this hyper-defensive situation to better enable Cabochard. And we talked about it in the draft about he was the kind of player I was excited to see. He was the player that I was keeping my eyes on. And you can see how Vitality, this split especially, have really been trying to enable him a lot more, especially when he's on these carry champions.
And he has a red pot, and he got a bag of gold there on the back of those Klepto procs as well. So we've seen how big of a gold lead you can build if you're allowed to free hit as a ranged champion into a melee champion. And especially versus Origin, we saw Cabochard beat an absolute monster, 7-1-7, that forward percentage, the time he spends past the halfway point in lane. This man lives under the enemy tower, Vedius.
Man, he loves to keep the pressure up, but speaking of pressure, oh man, Kikis still level 2. The blue buff will go in favor of Mowgli once again, and this is the second time we've seen this. Kikis expecting the map to be split, goes towards the enemy blue buff, but he can't clear it fast enough. He's only level 2. So Mowgli just makes his way back down, is able to interrupt and gets the steal off. Now, I don't think Mowgli can go for an invade here because the bot side of Rogue is still very aggressive, and they've been able to force Attila and Jactroll underneath the tower, so Mowgli wouldn't be safe trying to set up that invade, meaning at the very least Kikis will get level 3.
And Vedius, something we talked about yesterday a lot was the changes to jungle XP on 9.2, and falling behind on this patch is brutal. And at this point, Kikis is already multiple camps behind, only 4 minutes into the game. Getting to that level 6 is going to be such a struggle if Mowgli continues to play aggressive and use the pressure of his lanes.
I'm curious as to how the gold is going. Look at the mid lane, look at the top lane. Now, Sion versus Jayce is supposed to be a really difficult matchup, but Jiizuké going, nah, I reckon I can make my matchup way worse. Already sitting at a 13 CS advantage, forcing Sencux back to base extremely early on, demonstrating his proficiency on the champion and how difficult it can be to play Akali against these ranged matchups.
Good news is closer and closer to that level 6 point. Maybe can try to get some pressure here and roam elsewhere, but Jiizuké clearly fearless in this matchup. Sadly does not get to complete the tier on the back, opts for the Dark Seal instead, but Sencux, long sword and a Doran shield is definitely not a sign of a winning lane.
And now Jactroll looking for Roam. The pings will come out. There's no actual vision there for Rogue, so good read from whoever recognized that. And you've also got Wadid hanging around there. There's a bit of defense. Jiizuké continuing to land skill shots even through the Shroud right there.
Yeah, but both supports are there, and Sencux, of course, not. Oh, Mowgli, run and kick us down. Is he going to be able to get the flash over the wall? Mowgli not going to commit anything else there in the play, but Kikis is living a nightmare right now. He is desperately going to try to take this one away. He has the smite available. Mowgli pulling it back, so Kikis has to commit more to the camp, but Mowgli has flash and Kikis does not. So Kikis overstays his welcome here. He could just go down.
This is really refreshing to see. Very often when you have winning jungle matchups, a lot of teams don't leverage it. But what Vitality are doing is they know they have pressure in mid and top, and so they're just trying to snowball the enemy jungle as much as possible. Now they're even diving.
Knock up, ready to commit more into Sencux. Throws back there though with the Shuriken toss, not going to commit anything else, but Vitality are in complete control of the top side of the map right now, Vedius. They're leaving Attila on his little island to farm, and that's giving HeaQ a CS advantage, but that is the only advantage Rogue are getting right now. Vitality already building towards a 1k gold lead on farm and Klepto procs alone.
Really impressive stuff. Love the way in which Mowgli is shutting Sencux down. He's now level 5 to Kikis' level 4. Has a 16 CS advantage himself. Now it's obviously slightly skewed because camps are worth 4. but at the same time, it's still pretty significant in terms of gold. Now, Wadid is the one to make a roam. Sencux hits level 6.
Gets the mini stun there on the first proc of the ult. Can't look for the second one. Jiizuké trying to sidestep. Timing just a little bit off there from Sencux.
He'd already used the initial
the mini
ult,
stun.
yeah, so he couldn't actually interrupt that, and I don't think Wadid was level 6. No, he's not, so he couldn't interrupt that either. So I think he just wanted to get a bit of chip damage out, and now he is able to get a bit of farm back on the board. But as you said, once the level 6 mark hits, Sencux generates a little bit more pressure in terms of that 1v1, so it should be a little easier moving forward.
Yeah, but sadly, it's just a very difficult early laning phase across the board from Rogue. We kind of wanted to see more strength in the bottom lane, and what looked like it could be a CS lead for HeaQ gets balanced out as soon as Jactroll returns to that bot lane and helps Attila push. And with the Sheen already picked up and HeaQ just functioning on pieces, what should be a very strong Lucian isn't looking quite as comfortable.
I think he's doing okay for the most part right now. He's sitting at about a 100 gold advantage, but in part that's because Attila's also running the Kleptomancy, so he's still keeping things relatively even in terms of gold. You will notice the Fairy Charm that's sitting in his inventory. Something that AD carries across the world have been doing is it's a very cheap item that you can also then sell for a high gold value, which means that you just get a bit of extra mana regeneration, which means you have a bit more use of your spells during the laning phase, which is always a nice thing to have.
Especially for a character like Lucian. Ezreal has the luxury, of course, of building it into a tier, so getting a little bit more value than any other champion. But Mowgli remains an absolute terror. Kikis, not gonna get anything. And I feel like if we just watched these two, you would have an Olaf montage. And see, when I said I was skeptical about montage or Olaf, these are the highs that I was mentioning. This is like the nightmare Olaf performance. We've got our own little mini Tarzan right now on the stage, and Mowgli just demolishing Kikis.
The thing that is really important, in my perspective, that people have to understand is it's the combination of pressure, right? So Jiizuké and Cabochard have winning matchups, which means that they're able to push their lanes in pretty consistently. This means that Mowgli can invade the enemy jungle and stop Kikis from doing anything, which then in turn allows his laners to be more aggressive because they know there's no risk of an enemy jungler coming, so they can just keep trying to play for their 1v1. So it's this really nice synergy that you have, where if you have a strong mid laner, you can have a strong jungler, which can then make your mid laner strong again, but you have to be willing to play this aggressively. And they have full vision of the enemy jungle, they know exactly where Kikis is, and so the laners can just continue to build up these advantages and get further and further ahead.
And 9 minutes in, we have that 1k gold lead, no kills, no towers. That's built off the Klepto procs from the respective lanes, as well as the gold. And now Kikis running top, hoping to get something back here. Prophet not quite with the ultimate up and available. Cabochard, where is he going to go? Trying to Q out. The TP is now coming in, but it looks like Cabochard will fall here in the end. TP can't be canceled, and that's first blood for Rogue.
Now that does surprise me, because he was pinged out. They should have known why Kikis wasn't at. Jiizuké's in some trouble.
Oh, ulti right up, and Sencux is on the way. Jiizuké could just go down right here. Sencux going to leap in the first proc of the ult, looking for the second one to come through. Should be able to find the execute damage into the tower. Rogue striking back with 2 kills.
Jiizuké is able to get 1 kill back as Prophet falls to the tower, and Vitality will exchange it for a Drake, but you're right. Rogue finding themselves 2 kills, really good punish onto Jiizuké, and the 2 solo laners that I was literally just praising for being able to build a strong early advantage immediately get shut down by Rogue.
And right there, I have to praise Kikis, Vedius, I feel like. When we look back at this is a desperation play, and if this doesn't pay off, he's even further behind, but he knows when to pull the trigger.
And Cabochard just overstays way too long. They have full knowledge of where he is. Cabo doesn't need to stay here. He doesn't burn the flash, even though the teleport is on his way, and he ends up just giving away his life. He doesn't have the teleport either. And then Akali's already making a way up. Prophet just gets his ultimate available, so they go for the engage. And Jiizuké, again, he does have his flash, doesn't burn it early, and it's too little too late, as Sencux is then just able to kill him. So I am very surprised that neither Vitality solo laner choose to use their flash. I guess from their perspective, they were guaranteed to die, so they just didn't decide to risk it. But I just also believe that Cabo made a big overextension there that Rogue successfully punished.
Absolutely, and the silver lining in that exchange for Vitality is that the gold remains even, that they did get an Infernal Drake, but those kind of hiccups, those kind of small mistakes will cost them if they continue to give up those sort of kills. Still massive deficits in the jungle, of course, but the kill for Kikis will balance out a lot of that and closer to the early AP itemization for Gragas. It's interesting though, Vedius, because you're so right, and they're once again, immediately after that play, despite dying, still in control, still have Mowgli invading, still set up here. But Kikis is suddenly a lot more confident to go for these plays.
Yeah, he's definitely a lot more relevant as well with that first kill on the board. He's gotten a bit more gold in his back pocket, and we've also got to keep our eyes on the mid lane. Sencux actually going for an bit of a good trade there onto Jiizuké. You talked about it. The level 6 now level 9 has completed the Sword of the Occult, and Kikis is here in mid. He's definitely being a lot more active.
The Sword of the Occult?
That's the wrong word. I'm sorry.
that item's not in the game. Jiizuké now running for his life. Glad this man does not have a Sword of the Occult, because he might just try to find a kill here. Might try to get the snowball started. And Sencux goes right into the Shroud. Mowgli trying to get something back, but it looks like they may just turn it on him. Unstoppable. And Sencux really showing up on this Akali.
Yes, he certainly is. Now Cabochard going in 1v1 against Prophet. No flash on the top side. Mowgli
going back, using the flash to make it out. Cabo trying to make something happen on the top side. You hear the ulti coming out from Sion as he retreats there, and he is going to live in the end. TP now coming into the mid lane as well, but Attila takes a lot of damage to finish that channel. As you can see, HeaQ cut through that health bar a decent amount.
The Bilgewater Cutlass is his actual name. I apologize for that.
No, it's fine. I was just like, that is the most random name to pull out of the hat. That item has not been in the game for years.
It's a sword. What item do you know that's called it's Sword of the Occult? That's what it is, Vedius. Like, okay.
Don't get me wrong, I missed that item, man.
But it is not that. Anyway, back on track. Kikis finds another successful gank. He's now found 3 kills for the side of Rogue, and this is just Jiizuké, who does have his flash, but they just chase him down. Sencux uses his flash ult and unfortunately isn't able to get the stun, but it doesn't matter. He gets more than enough damage to get the cleanup. He then uses the Shroud here, even though you can't see it on the Spectator bug, it is up, and that buys him enough time to escape from Mowgli's grasp and walk away with his life. But still, Vitality sit with the gold lead.
And the kills are so heavily going in the favor of Rogue, these ganks and these plays, but the objectives continue to go in the favor of Vitality. Realm Warp comes in for Jiizuké. Jactroll, not sure if he wants to extend this one. They are going to keep going to Prophet. They see that he's very squishy, and Mowgli's on the way in as well to try and finish this one. Unstoppable now for the Olaf. He is just going to retreat. Takes another tower shot. He's so low, but Prophet just not quite fast enough with the zombie Sion to come in there.
Remember, you do lose your resistances when you ultimate, so being underneath the tower just means you take a lot more damage. The wave will not be cleared because of a good block there from Wadid, but Rogue getting a lot of extra tower damage on the spot side. Fortunately for Vitality,
first tower?
Yes, they have the proc of the Rift Herald, so just before 14 minutes they'll be able to get full utilization of the tower plating, and that will keep them keep them ahead in terms of gold.
Putting a lot of gold into the back pocket of Jiizuké, help him keep up with Sencux, who got those 2 kills. Ever closer to the Bilgewater Cutlass, a huge breakpoint, and another Rift Herald charge as well here at 14 minutes. So Rogue's still at about a 2K deficit, all things considered, despite some impressive plays from individual members.
In part, it comes with the double Kleptomancy. There's still an 800 gold difference between the 280 carries, but there is a 1200 gold advantage in favor of Cabochard, which is where a lot of this gold lead is coming from, as well as in the mid lane. Jiizuké, he got the turret plates up towards the top side of the map, and he took a couple of plates in mid as well. So the plating is actually what's getting him so far ahead, even though the Akali has 2 kills. And that just goes to show the value of plates in the early game. Securing them is really important, and clearly what Vitality have prioritized.
Yeah, and supports their style of drafting with these strong individual solo lanes. Rogue, though, starting to group up now on the bottom side of the map. Maybe going to look to contest this Cloud Drake. Definitely not the ideal Drake to pick up, but is an objective and is going to be relevant in this game.
I do think Vitality needs to be careful going for fights right now. Their composition excels more in 1v1s, 2v2s, kind of skirmishes, side lane setups, whereas the 5v5 with an Akali now level 11, HeaQ level 10 with a fully completed Blade of the Ruin King. I do think that Rogue do have an advantage right now in terms of their ability to fight, so Vitality should show that respect in order to not allow Rogue to get ahead.
And for now, they are pulling back here. We can see, though, Jiizuké continues to push it on the top side of the map, and while so many Rogue members are committed, Cabo is just going to use this opportunity to push up into the mid lane. Sencux, though, does not hesitate to sidestep and will do his best to hold on to this tower. Ooh, have to respect the Akali, though. Mowgli is luckily there to cover for Cabochard. Sencux hungry for that all-in.
Utilizing the Shroud to just buy a little time. You can see Vitality have actually set up a bit of a 1-3-1, except they have more of the 1-1-3, with Jiizuké actually being moved into the Prophet matchup because he's itemized armor. He has no magic resistance, which means that Vitality is going to do way more damage now. And the same thing for Sencux. He's gone for the Merc Treads. He has no armor in his back pocket right now, so Cabochard is much more comfortable in that matchup. So just good awareness there from Vitality to recognize where they can get every small advantage.
Definitely the case, and of course, good start for Rogue in a lot of ways. Obviously not ideal to fall behind in some of these individual lanes, but HeaQ, a guy we've had our eyes on, is finally stepping up, at least in the CS department, being able to match, being able to use the lane, you know, in the way that it was drafted for him, finding those leads early on.
He has often fallen behind during the laning phase, and he has been a point of weakness for the side of Rogue. But so far in this game, he's leveraged the fact that Jactroll has been roaming a lot, and Attila has been 1v2, and they were able to secure the bot side tower, but unfortunately because of the Rift Herald, they couldn't get it before Vitality. But now he needs to translate this into a strong mid lane, working towards a mid game rather. He has the Black Cleaver on its way. Rogue have the ability to force fights, and if they can just group up and actually get themselves a 4v4, 5v5, there is an opportunity there for Rogue to get themselves back in the game in terms of gold.
But Vitality are just not letting it happen. You see Cabo consistently moving to the opposite side of the map, looking to just match up against this Sion. He has the Black Cleaver, he's comfortable. And Jiizuké can really go wherever. These strong solo lanes, such a huge boon for Vitality. Ezreal and Alistar feel kind of like they're on wave clear duty, just playing defensive, but the remaining members do get to make a big impact.
Sencux actually has a level advantage over Jiizuké now. I guess being in the mid lane and being funneled a little bit more solo experience has given him that opportunity. The 2 kills probably help as well. The Gunblade is now done, which means he has legitimate kill threat onto Jiizuké as well. And Redemption has been finished for Mowgli too, the item that we were talking about earlier. HeaQ going in.
Going forward onto Attila. Jactroll going to try to push him back. Hawking him up though. The Ignite is ticking down, but HeaQ can only hit Jactroll right now. Kikis thrown in the cast. That is going to be the kill. Going over to Wadid, getting this fight kicked off. They're finding the weak point right now on Vitality, and they're pushing in. Finding the 2 kills there on the top side for Rogue.
Great play from the side of Rogue. There was actually little to no vision on the top side of Vitality's jungle, and they didn't respect the possibility of a dive, which means that Rogue find themselves 2 quick kills. They've closed the gold gap just a little bit, but again, Vitality trading it for something else on the map will pick themselves up a Cloud Drake.
And it does really feel like 2 different teams. You've got Attila and Jactroll on one side of the map, the 3 other members of Vitality doing their own thing, and sadly kind of left out to dry there. No vision to defend them, and Rogue are happy to capitalize.
So let's have a look. Keep your eyes on the minimap. You'll see that the Gragas actually gets spotted out, but the pings are coming through from the side of Rogue. Vitality just want to escape. Attila unfortunately doesn't have his flash, and he hasn't been able to create enough of the distance to get away from the Gragas ultimate. So I guess they just stuck around underneath the tower a little too long, and Rogue are very quick to punish. So good pick up there for Rogue.
Yeah, definitely what we want to see, as you mentioned, using the Lucian as that strong point to try to find some greater advantages. Still at a 2K deficit, but Rogue finally getting some control around the top side of the map. Vitality still a lot of defensive vision in their jungle, but it is a start for Rogue as we head into the mid to late game.
It's really important to remember that when looking at deficits, where do they come from? Because right now, the difference is between the top lanes. That gold difference exists because of Cabochard, whereas for HeaQ, he actually has a 1.2k gold lead over his counterpart. So HeaQ is strong. He's at a really good point. The issue comes for Rogue is when Cabochard gets involved in these fights, right? Because he's at like 2.5 items. But ideally, he wants to be sitting in a side lane, split pushing. So if Rogue can create a 4v4 scenario, they actually should have a gold advantage over Vitality that they can leverage to find picks, force plays, and actually get more control over the map.
And that's partially why we see Kikis use the Predator there. He sees that opportunity. He sees that Cabochard is bottom. They want to use that strong Lucian. But Cabo continues to just be a massive threat to profit. Luckily, there's enough armor on the Sion that he can just be a wave clear bot here. At the end of the day, though, Rogue finding strength, finding an opportunity to come back into this game, playing around the strong side quite well as this trio moves into the top lane.
Look at Vitality now collapsing with Alistar towards the top side of the map. Mowgli does have vision on what's going on.
Takes his opportunity to clear out the vision. Rogue don't want to contest onto the Olaf. They know that he has the ultimate up and available, and HeaQ feeling quite confident as he steps forward. And really just a scattered game. 3v3 on the top side of the map. You've got Ezreal and Akali facing off in the mid lane, where Cabochard's Jayce faces off against Prophet's Sion on the bottom side.
He's continuing to chip away at this tower, but still, it feels to me like Rogue have way more control over the map because they're investing all this vision towards the top side. This is where the Baron is. Sion is surviving the matchup for now, and while the deficit gets bigger and bigger, Rogue are successfully putting pressure onto this tier 2 in the top lane. So they're actually leveraging the fact that they do have this strong duo, and they're forcing Vitality to come to them. Now 4 members have come up top, and they've actually brought Cabochard with them.
And Attila, you can see very fearless on Ezreal, knowing this team is there to back him up, not afraid to E forward into the face of the Gragas there. Sencux moving in to pressure this, though, knows that he has the team advantage for now. Alistar's going to go down, but the Shroud is there, but he's right outside of it, has to step under the tower, uses the Shuriken flip to make it out to safety. But no greater advantages here. However, Sion on the bottom side is getting run down by Jiizuké. Hits the blast cone, though.
I think he wanted to get it just before Prophet got into position to knock him back in, but can't quite make the same play that Perkz was able to do earlier in the day. And now we see Vitality still sitting with a healthy gold lead. They're now putting vision towards the bot side of the map. The Drake spawns at about 1:30, which will likely be the next objective that they play for, while they also reclaim some control of the top side of the map. You can see Cabochard pushing that wave out. They can go through their jungle, clear out some of these control wards that Rogue had set up, and kind of slow down the aggression that Rogue have been successfully applying up towards the top side.
And now finally putting some of that attention around the Baron pit that you were talking about, that being a huge objective, as Jiizuké is now free to kind of pressure out the bot lane up against that Sion. So Mowgli finally clearing out these wards, making sure that Vitality can contest a Baron if it ever comes to that. And feels like while Rogue were in control for a few minutes there, Vitality have done a good job to take some back.
Well, now HeaQ will go back to base and pick up the BF sword, so he's still very strong in the Lucian. 242 farm at 22 minutes is a great spot for him to be in. I just want to see Rogue try and force something sometime soon. I think that they are in a great spot, and if they can keep Cabo out of the fight, that's the best case scenario. And Akali, like, she's in a great spot, 2-0-0 right now for Sencux, level 14, has a level advantage over Jiizuké. She's been getting a lot of free farm off in a side lane. Like, Rogue are not in a terrible position right now. They have the ability to win a fight. It's all dependent on how involved Cabochard gets in and what he can do elsewhere on the map while a potential fight happens.
And the two big confidence players this game have been Wadid and Kikis, so I want to see what they can do as they both have flash and ultimate available. We saw the aggressive flash ult from the Braum be the key to picking off Attila and Jactroll on the top side, but sadly, Maverick's trying to fight the fight here, trying to turn it. HeaQ is going to step back, looking for a little bit more. Attila's in the backside, but Sencux wants to clean up this Ezreal. He's going to dash right now, and Olaf is chasing nothing. Rogue find 2 in the mid lane. Solid pickups.
And this is 2 big kills that Rogue find themselves, and this is the kind of plays I wanted to see them forcing. They've kept one of the big carries off on a side lane, and Cabochard couldn't even get involved in the fight. He came at the last second. Now, while Jiizuké does secure a tower, I like what we're seeing from Rogue. Fortunately for them, they're still at a gold deficit, and they can't convert it into any objectives.
Brutal situation for sure, as it's about an even gold trade. Nothing really changes as Vitality continue to get more towers and passively get more vision on the map. Courtesy of that, a Mountain Drake going down as well does make the threat of Baron even more real. There's the potential for Kikis to take this one away, but not sure if he's willing to give his life for this exchange.
I don't think it's worth it. It will mean that Vitality move up to 3 Drakes in the game now, and another Inferno will be on the board. But still, like, let's have a look back at this dive. So HeaQ, he actually gets way too close to the tower because he thinks they're actually going for the engage, so he almost gets punished, but he doesn't have to flash, and Attila actually just gets melted by Sencux, which then splits Mowgli away from Jactroll, forcing him into a 1 versus 3 underneath the tower that Wadid does a great job tanking, and then you have the damage from both Kikis and HeaQ. So they get 2 quick kills. We're seeing Sencux now 3-0-0 on this Akali.
The Oblivion Orb now working towards what could be a death cap as well. It's a good look for Sencux. 3-0-0. You said it yourself, tied up now in CS after getting so hard shoved in that early game. And Kikis, the other guy who was put so incredibly far behind, is still having big impact in these exchanges.
Now they've moved Sencux off to a side lane. Level 15, same as Jiizuké, who's been sitting bot this entire time. He's been keeping Prophet occupied. And the problem for Rogue is, one of their big engage tools is Prophet, but because he's so far behind right now, it's much better if he's keeping someone busy elsewhere.
Holding on to Attila. Hold that thought. The cast comes out and they manage to take him down. They're going to set their sights on mid lane and immediately break it. HeaQ playing so much better this game, set up to succeed with that Lucian pick and definitely pulling it off.
Now the Baron is alive. Prophet is forced off this tower, but I wonder if Rogue tried to force it to just get some of the teleports out from Vitality.
Big risk. Redemption now coming in from Mowgli, gives him a little bit of vision into the pit. They're going to see this one. Cabo trying to throw in a little bit of poke. It's going to be a slow Baron, though. This Jayce, the strong point for the team, moving into this pit, moving into this fight. They are at a man disadvantage, but Prophet now on the way in too with the TP. Eyes set on the Alistar. Maybe they're going to be able to find Jactroll here. Mowgli now on the retreat. They're not going to be able to get the Baron, but they are going to be able to take down Jactroll. Bad news, though. Jiizuké remains on the bottom side and is threatening that inhibitor tower.
And it's really good for Rogue because Sencux can now go back to base, and he doesn't have to be worried about Vitality forcing the Baron themselves. Even though they have 3 teleports, there's still only 4 members. And they don't really have someone that can tank that objective either because of how squishy all the members are. So good stuff here from Rogue. This is just Attila. He wasn't even that overextended. We just see a very aggressive play coming out from HeaQ, and then the cleanup comes out from Kikis, his ulti doing more than enough damage, and this results in a tower secure for the side of Rogue.
And you talked about how strong HeaQ could be on this Lucian, and we're seeing a lot of that damage come through. And Vedius, the gold lead was 4K just minutes ago, but now shrinking down to 2K as Rogue continue to find these fights.
And again, want to illustrate where that gold difference is. It's the top lane. You can see that 3,000 is the advantage for Cabochard over his lane opponent, and 1,000 in the mid lane, but HeaQ also has a 1,700 gold lead over his lane counterpart. And the fact that Sencux is still sitting at 2 completed items with a Gunblade means that he's still going to be relevant. Even if he is 1,000 gold behind Jiizuké, he still does damage, he's still a threat on a side lane, and I believe that he could even kill Jiizuké if he plays it right. Very skill-dependent matchup, but it's one of those situations where Rogue are looking very good right now, Drakos, and I don't think Vitality have as much control as it feels like they do.
No, and I think a lot of people would be willing to give Vitality the benefit of the doubt, given that the team that's so much higher up in the standings that Rogue have yet to find a win. The Rogue are playing incredibly well in this game. And interestingly enough, you talk about gold leads. Wadid has a 900 gold lead, and that doesn't translate to a whole lot, but when you're able to get this Zeke's convergence, it means that HeaQ, who's already this big damage threat, is even more terrifying if Vitality try to force a team fight.
Jiizuke's spidey senses are tingling right now. He doesn't quite know where Sencux is. Sencux doesn't have the level 3 in his ultimate yet. Ooh. Jiizuké just going to play it safe, going to back off. But look at all this vision that's invested in the bot side as well for Vitality. Doing their best to keep Jiizuké safe while the rest of them play around the top side. They still have vision on the Baron as well, so they'll know if Rogue tried to force it. But you can see how Vitality, in the early game, they were non-stop pressure, 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 pressure. They were shutting Kikis down, they were forcing Sencux and Profits back, but now they're the ones playing on the back foot. They're relying on their side lane as the split pushes to create the pressure for them, which is allowing Rogue to just walk up mid, gain control over the wave, and then set up all this vision around Baron. And all it takes now for Rogue is to start this Baron off, force the teleport out from Vitality, force Vitality to come to them, get that team fight that you're looking for, and then perhaps convert that into a big enough advantage that you can get your first win of the split.
Something to note that's important, though, Vedius, is that Sencux does not have the luxury of that TP. He has the micro stun on that Akali ultimate. That's what he can hope to pull off to interrupt Jiizuké on that bottom side. But as we enter a pause, it does feel like the stakes just continue to raise for both of these lineups as we get later into the game.
Rogue did throw out that pause, ladies and gentlemen. Once we've got more information, we'll share it with you. But yeah, Rogue, this is great for them. You know, we talked about it at the beginning of the game. Pressure. You never want to be the team that loses to the team that hasn't won a game yet. And for me, Rogue have actually been improving week on week. I feel like that we've seen small developments, somewhat smaller than some of the other teams down towards the bottom end, but it does feel to me like they have just improved slightly. And they've also been willing to take risks. Like, I know I've seen some community sentiment, which is like, why would you ever put HeaQ on Vayne? Why would you put Sencux on a carry? Like, these guys have nothing to lose. They're sitting at the bottom of the table. Why not give them comfort? Why not give them something that they feel confident on? And if they win, it's going to do nothing but further build their confidence. And right now, you see Sencux is 3-0-0 on this Akali. HeaQ is having a dominant performance on the Lucian. And if you trust these guys enough, then you'd have to hope that eventually that trust will pay off.
And one of the big projects for Rogue was finding the team identity. And you're not going to find that team identity if you're just going back to what previous teams did with these players. Yeah. So the fact that they are willing to take these risks is good. And the fact that you see it pay off now if you're a Rogue fan is fantastic. Seeing a guy like Sencux start to reach some of those peaks that we've seen in the past on Misfits. Seeing Kikis get obliterated in the early game, but still manage to make an impact is a good sign for Rogue. Is it enough to win the game, though?
That's the big question.
Absolutely. And for Vitality, you know, I think they had such a dominant early game, and the fact that they haven't been able to transition into that, you know, 1-3-1 clean snowball kind of win is just further testament to Rogue.
The thing is, they still have really strong side laners, and Rogue aren't quite out of the woods yet, because all Vitality have to do is keep splitting on a side, and eventually they will break into the base. It's way easier for them to just play towards their win conditions, because you're kind of looking at Rogue and being said, well, you're the ones that actually have to force the Baron, because Vitality never need to. They don't have to touch that objective, because they know that in a 1v1, they're more likely to win. The only risk is there's Akali, of course, but right now I think Jiizuké is in a more than comfortable state that he can handle her. But yeah, so Rogue still have to showcase that they can convert the situation that they're in into a bigger lead and actually put the pressure onto Vitality. Because remember, if they start that Baron and it gets stolen, then you're not stopping this 1-3-1. That'll just be the end almost immediately.
No, absolutely not. The Jayce and the Ryze shred through towers. The Ezreal, an absolute nightmare if you're ever stuck under your own. But I think it's important that we look back, and part of the reason that Rogue have been so successful in this game, Vedius, is how willing they were to be proactive, to look for these proactive plays, even if it had kind of a high risk. And we did see Vitality sort of stack their bottom lane. This replay that we're going to bring up, it does feel a little bit like Attila and Jactroll have been left on an island.
Well, in this situation, I think the mistake was from Attila there. He was trying to get farm when he wasn't in a position to do it. If you guys have a quick look at the minimap, you can see that there's actually vision littered throughout the river, and they saw that the Gragas was on his way up to the top side, and then they still approached the tower, enabling HeaQ to actually set up that engage. So I think the mistake comes from the Vitality bot lane. They didn't think that the duo would get up to the top side fast enough, and because Kikis did have his ulti, he was able to find that kill. So I think you're right, they have just kind of left this duo on an island, but that also is the goal of their composition. They are much more tailored towards playing this 1-3-1 and taking advantage in the side. What impresses me the most is that Mowgli, even with 180 CS, is the same level as Kikis. And the reason for that is because Kikis has been involved in 8 of their 9 kills. He's currently sitting at 2-0 and 6 versus Mowgli's 1-0-0 to Vitality's only 2 kills. And I just think that's quite impressive. The fact that Kikis, even after being put at such a massive deficit, he's 60 CS down, is still able to stay relevant in this game and find a lot of successful plays.
Absolutely the case, and I think if you were ever to pick a game as Kikis where you could really pop off, where you could really come back from what was an unfortunate start, it doesn't hurt to do against a former team. It doesn't hurt to show Vitality that you are still the strong player. And I think Vedius, when I look back at this early game, if you had told me that Rogue would have been able to find a way back in after what was Mowgli literally living in the enemy jungle, I would have told you it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
So once again, the development continues. And now, as we sit in the pause, as we wait to see what is going to be the next step in the game, I do wonder what Jactroll's thinking about. Look at that, man. Look at that zoom in. That's great. Well played, camera team. I personally vote for a future state of LEC where you have to cosplay the champion you play. I would love to see Jiizuké Ryze.
Wait, but that means that you would have to cosplay Kayn all the time.
Yeah.
And then halfway through the game, you'd either become a demon or an assassin.
That sounds super metal. Why is that a problem? That's super cool.
I don't know how quality your cosplay would be. If I was...
Why? Because I have a belly and Kayn has a six-pack? Is that what you're trying to say?
That's not what I was implying, but you said it.
I also said pro players. I never said... I like that you extended it to us, Mr. Nocturne. Man, how are you going to work that one out?
I would just wear...
Blades for arms?
I would wear a black sheet, and I would glue knives to my arms.
Please don't glue knives to your arms. People at home, that's dangerous.
No, they'd be like rubber knives.
Okay, there you go. I'd be concerned to cast with you.
I can't handle real knives.
You do flail sometimes,
Come on,
you know?
man. I cut my pizza with scissors. Like, let's be real here. Oh no, a lot of people don't know about that. I probably shouldn't have said that.
You also eat it with pineapple, but that's a debate for another day.
That is a debate for another day.
It's a hot topic. And TLDR, we are waiting. We had reports of FPS drops, so we are checking it out. Of course, it's very important to make sure that all the players are, comfortable, that there are no issues with their performance on the PCs.
Yeah, and for those that may have just joined us, very close game between Rogue and Vitality. Vitality had full control over the early game. They were... Think of it like a race. It was like a speed car race, and right now it was almost to the point at which Vitality lapped them. Right? It was that dominant. But then all of a sudden, it almost like they ran out of fuel, and slowly but surely, Rogue have been catching up. And now they're just behind that first place race car, and it's just about finding that opportune moment, waiting for that right corner to get them on the inside. But they have to be the ones to try and make the overtake, because Vitality, they're still sitting in first. They're still at the head of this race, and if Rogue do nothing, then Vitality will be able to win it.
And right now, as we re-enter the game, first looks like a 3K gold lead and a very large CS discrepancy for the top lane. Attila, though, feeling more confident here. And Vedius, I like it. And it feels even less like Vitality ran out of gas there, and even more like Rogue took the crazy risk. They went off-road. They broke the rules of NASCAR to do what they had to do to get ahead. They took some risks. They weren't disqualified for it, and now here we are. And really the big question for me is, how is this Akali going to match up in the side lane? Now you see the Jayce and the Ryze kind of hand-holding here, as the rest of Vitality are going to sneak into the pit.
They must know.
Now they see Jactroll. Now the pings are coming out fast and furious. They're hoping to find this one. Sencux already starting to walk up the Jayce.
That's super dangerous though, man. They don't need to do this. Instead, though, look. We've actually seen a Vitality classic. Look at the bot lane. Look at the bot lane. It looks like Jiizuké's overextended, but Cabochard is lying in wait right behind him.
Sencux has the ward there, is now going to see the Jayce as he comes around the corner. Has now realized his mistake, can't just shroud out. Ooh, the luxuries of being an Akali. Focusing instead on clearing the wave, but now Rogue know that they have a man advantage over the top side. Instead, they're going to settle for the Dragon. So risky gambit there from Vitality does not pay off, as Rogue are able to get the objective for free.
But this is actually something Vitality did last year when they found a... Ooh, we've got a TP up towards the top side. Vitality going for a fight. No TP on Sencux.
Trying to get a little bit more here. HeaQ coming in the backside. Attila is going to get knocked up. The chain CC coming in from the side. Now HeaQ flashes to the wall. He's absolutely fearless. He is ready. He is tired of being disrespected. And he goes right into the middle of the fight to find the kills here. here. Gragas going to grab one. HeaQ going to grab the second. Jiizuké now in trouble as the team continues to plow through. Vitality caught off guard. Rogue not hesitating to make this happen. And now the chain CC comes in immediately on Jiizuké. He overstays his welcome, and HeaQ gets another kill.
Jiizuké flashes in to make the hero play, but it is not enough. Cabochard doesn't even TP into the fight. He tries to keep Sencux busy, and in a 4v4, Rogue find the kills they need. They have their eyes set on the Baron. All they have to do is stop Mowgli from stealing it away.
Wadid doing what he can to block it out. Mowgli, this is the chance. This is his hero moment. It was a Lee Sin kick yesterday. Can it be a Baron steal today? Sencux immediately going into the combo, trying to buy time, trying to zone him off, trying to shut that jungler down. Sencux leaping to safety. Zhonya's hourglass perfectly timed. Sencux will get shut down. Wadid trying to stop the jungler from getting into the pit. Rogue split attention, and it's disastrous, but they do get the Baron in the end. They keep 4 members alive, and Rogue just barely able to grab that play out in the end as Mowgli wanted to get in there.
Really good stuff from Rogue. 12 kills to 3. While the gold is still not in their favor, they have gold on all the right people, and that's all that matters. So this fight actually starts off with Mowgli face checking the brush. He's forced to burn his ultimate extremely early, and Attila, he now doesn't have his E or his flash, which means that HeaQ can flash over the wall and go for the kill. You notice that Jiizuké actually TP'd into the lane and uses Realm Warp to get into the fight. So it's not even a 4v4, it's more like a 4v2 as Mowgli was forced to retreat the entire fight. And Jiizuké wasn't there, and then Jiizuké goes in, he thinks he can get some executes down, but it's a 4v1. He's not able to do it, and this gives the Baron over to Rogue.
And just well played by Rogue in the end there. Clean Baron as it comes out. I said it's close. I think just slip of the tongue. Very much in their control. And now they're in a fantastic spot to even up the gold. Yes, they're still at a small deficit, but it doesn't mean too much as HeaQ just looks more and more powerful. 4 items coming through. The Essence Reaver here as well. This is the kind of pop-off solo queue build you look for.
But this is exactly what we wanted to see from Rogue. They needed to force the play. They brought the Sion up. They found the fight. And now they're just zoning Vitality away from the tower. Jiizuké is trying to split push, but remember, he doesn't have teleport, and against a Baron-empowered team, you can't afford to split push because they're going to break into your base faster than you will.
Jiizuké with the wave, we're going to get the picture-in-picture. We're going to watch the race here. Jiizuké going to try to break one inhibitor, but Rogue, if they can pull the trigger on a fight, could just look to end the game. Inhibitor traded, or at least one taken down there. They're not going to be able to back soon enough. Vitality ready to stop those recalls so Jiizuké can complete the inhibitor take.
Wow. He actually trades an inhibitor in this situation.
He's going to keep going.
Whoa, they're trying to stop
Jactroll
these.
wanting to get that one out, and he is going to stop it. Jiizuké, this is Vitality 101. Desperation play. The TPs are coming in. Rogue are trying to respond, but it might be too little too late. It's a desperation move for Vitality, but it's going to pay off. Vitality taking down Rogue.
Heartbreaking for Rogue as they get backdoored by Vitality. They weren't expecting it, we weren't expecting it.
We were on the cusp of a Rogue win. Vitality up to the tempo. They tried to match that play, they tried to shift things up and teleport into that Baron. It turned against them. But then they did it one more time. They upped the tempo one more time. They took one more big risk, and that one paid off.
And I feel like in that last one, Rogue just needed to commit. They needed to make the decision, we're gonna end the game now. But they backed off, and that just gave them all the time in the world to... And you'd think that with the Baron and Pad recalls, they could get back in base, but Jactroll flashed in, everyone was just flashing in to interrupt. And then you had the double teleport come through with a stack of minions. That was correct. Vitality should have lost that game. But with creative thinking and gambles, they somehow managed to find a way.
That is the most Vitality thing I have ever seen in my entire life.
So Vitality.
And good to know that as this team develops, that they can still fall back on some crazy moves from the old playbook. And Vedius, I'm just at a loss for words. The confidence to pull off that play in the face of defeat up against Rogue is incredible.
Oh, it's so heartbreaking for Rogue. They were so close. They did such a great job getting back into the game.
Vitality got 3 kills, Vedius.
Yeah.
To Rogue's 13. Constantly winning team fights on the side of Rogue.
I just feel so bad for them. I feel so bad. No one likes to lose it. Like, because you just feel like that they fought so hard to the bitter end. You know, they played it patiently. They had a really good Baron. It looked so close, and then to lose to a backdoor. It's
900 gold lead to end the game. That is how close the game was. 50 of that gold is probably from the Nexus.
And I mean, that whole deficit is literally the difference between the two top laners. That's where that deficit comes from. Like, Rogue should have really been in a gold advantage, really.
Vedius.
Can't help but feel bad.
There's so much to say. One, heartbreaking loss for Rogue, for sure, but so much improvement that we've seen from this team. HeaQ stepping up, proving that he is someone worth putting resources into for this Rogue squad. The same story for Sencux. And on the opposite side, Vitality, incredible early game, dominant early game, fantastic use of the Olaf, but a lot went wrong in that mid game, and I feel like they are going to have to watch that VoD back a few times to figure out exactly what they need to step it up on.
You cannot blame. You cannot blame Vitality had such a creative way to end the game. Like, they've done it so many times before. Extremely exciting to watch, and just acknowledging the fact that they never really give up until the very bitter end. But at the same time, mad props to Rogue. I think we saw some pretty significant growth from them. But yeah, what a way to end the game. Was not expecting.
I mean, let's look at it one more time if we can. We can take the opportunity here to look back. Vedius.
So, we can see here that in this moment, in my head, what Rogue needs to do is just hard commit. Either force a fight or just try to end the game. But trying to base is the risk, because you're just going to trade inhibitor for inhibitor. Now, the bit that I didn't expect was Vitality recognize that they still have 2 teleports available, and they can actually just join in with Jiizuké to try and end this game. So, while the rest of Rogue are backing off and they're like, okay, we need to base, we need to counter these waves, this is when Jactroll and Mowgli just go hyper-aggressive, and Jactroll just barely gets the interrupt off. Mowgli doing what he can. Rogue just trying to get away from Jactroll, and then the double teleport comes immediately in, and the TP, it doesn't get cancelled, it gets interrupted. I think it gets interrupted by Jactroll as well, so none of the members are even able to get back to base, and Rogue end up losing.
That's a moment in League of Legends that is just hard. It's electric, it's exciting, it's incredible. And
it's just like a conflict of emotions, right? Because it's like, that was a really cool way to end the game.
As a spectator, that was the coolest thing I've seen this week. As someone with literally the smallest amount of analytical credibility possible, I'm like, that should not have worked, for the record.
Definitely shouldn't have worked.
All right, well, remember that you guys are in charge of the Kia Player of the Game vote, which this time stands between Jiizuké, Cabochard, and Mowgli. Go to Esports on Twitter and vote. Cabo had a great game. I feel like at the end of the day, Jactroll canceled the backs, though, and maybe a little bit underappreciated, as that's really the only match.
I mean, at the end of the day, it was Jiizuké that helped.
Very true.
You know, like, it's a tough one. Good luck, fans.
Well, we can find out what he thinks. Let's see what Vitality's mid laner has to say after that win.
Thank you, Drakos, and thank you for joining me again, Jiizuké. That was a messy game from you guys. Talk me through communication. How did you guys turn it around in the end? I mean, you had the lead the whole time in goals, but still.
We had the lead, but not really a big one. We made like 3 or 4 mistakes in the early game. We were like 30 CS ahead on mid and 30 CS on top, and we kind of threw it with the TP play on top to try to contest them. And from there, we were losing already bot, so we were. I was losing mid as well after that play, and it was kind of hard to play, but we come back pretty easy with taking the first blood tower and with Herald, and then I was like just being the saddling and taking towers, yeah.
A nice flashy play. In the end, I gotta ask, you were playing against Kikis, former teammates. How was it, especially knowing that Rogue is struggling so hard right now?
I just didn't want to lose, I will say. I pictured him hugging me at the end of the game, but him coming to me, so I really didn't want that image to show for real. So I hugged him instead, and that's what I wanted.
Respectful, as always. I gotta ask, how confident are you playing 1-3-1 compositions, especially in team fighting compositions when you like team fights so much, because you had a hard time here?
Well, Spring last split Vitality was only 1-3-1, so we are pretty confident in playing it. But 1-3-1, you have to make sure that you don't make any mistakes at all. Otherwise, it doesn't really work. And we made like 4 mistakes, and we still got away with it because we pulled the legendary Vitality backdoor bottom 3-man with 3 TPs. That's how we won. But yeah, if you make mistakes, it's kind of hard. And we are pretty confident in playing it. I think me and Cabo always, when we have those champions, we always get ahead. So yeah.
You can manage to do several playstyles, playing ham Vitality as we know it, playing meticulously. So you will take on G2 next week, I hope.
Yep.
Yep? Confident about it?
Yeah, sure.
All right, that's awesome. Then we'll see this next week. Thank you for joining me once again. And we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, it's going to be match of the day, Repo versus SOAS. Don't go anywhere. Thanks, dude.
Cabochard, where is he going to go? Trying to Q out. The TP is now coming in, but it looks like Cabochard will fall here in the end. Jiizuké now running for his life. Glad this man does not have a Sword of the Occult, because he might just try to find a kill here. Might try to get the snowball started. And Sencux goes right into the shout. Going forward onto Attila. Jactroll going to try to push him back. Hawking him up, though. The Ignite is ticking down, but HeaQ can only hit Jactroll right now. Kikis thrown in the cask.
Look at you there, Kill Ezreal, then Alistar. Dispel. Alistar, and then Nature.
Look nice.
Hey, Nature, we need to go Nature. Back.
I can end the game if you stop them. They can do it.
Just TP.
I'm stopping them. I'm tipping. Keep stopping. Stop Sion.
Come on, guys.
Lucius.
Vitality taking down Rogue.
We are powered up.
Get the Baron Buff Power Play with Shell V-Power.